An original podcast from podlatino.com.
There's a flame burning in almost every important moment of human life. In a kitchen, around a campfire, on a birthday candle, at a bonfire on a cold night. It's so familiar that we rarely stop to think about it. But there was a time, according to the Greeks, when that flame didn't exist in the world of mortals. And the story of how it got there is not a simple one. It's the story of a decision that cost everything. Prometheus was not a god of Olympus. He was a titan, which means he belonged to an older generation, the great beings who ruled the world before Zeus and his siblings came to power. The titans were powerful, ancient, and feared. But Prometheus was different from most of them. While others looked toward Olympus with pride or with resentment, he looked downward, toward the earth, toward the humans. Some say it was Prometheus who helped shape mortals, that he understood their limitations better than anyone. He knew they were fragile creatures. No claws, no thick fur, no venom, no extraordinary speed. Animals came into the world with their own built-in tools. Humans arrived with almost nothing. And yet, something about them caught Prometheus's attention. A spark of curiosity, a capacity to learn, a willingness to keep going even in the harshest conditions. He watched them and felt something that very few gods ever allowed themselves to feel toward mortals. Genuine compassion. When Zeus defeated Cronus and established a new order, the world was organized under a very clear hierarchy. The gods held Olympus. The mortals held the earth. And between those two worlds, there was a distance that wasn't only about space. It was a distance of power, of knowledge, of access. Zeus wasn't cruel for maintaining that distance. In his way of seeing things, he was being careful. The gods possessed things that mortals could not have, because that balance kept the world in order. If humans grew too strong, if they gained too many tools, too much knowledge, too much independence, what place would remain for the gods? Zeus thought about that. Not as a whim, but as the responsibility of someone who governs. Fire was one of those reserved things. In the ancient world, a flame was not just heat. It meant cooking and shelter, light in the darkness, the ability to shape metal and build tools, a gathering point around which a community could come together and survive the winter. Fire was, in a real sense, the first step toward a different kind of life, and the humans didn't have it. Prometheus knew that. He saw it every time he watched the mortals. He saw them shivering through cold nights, eating raw food, living in fear of the dark, scattering instead of gathering, because there was no warm center to stay close to, and that image wouldn't leave him alone. So he made a decision. A decision he knew carried consequences, because Prometheus was intelligent, and intelligence doesn't rule out knowing the risk. He chose to act anyway. The story goes that he climbed to Olympus in silence. He didn't arrive with fanfare or speeches. He didn't go to ask permission, because he already knew the answer would be no. He came with a hollow stalk of fennel, a plant that can hold a burning ember inside for a long time, without scorching the outside. He approached the sacred fire, took a small flame, tucked it inside the stalk, and walked back down to earth. That's how simple the act was. And that's how enormous what it meant turned out to be. When Prometheus gave fire to the humans, something changed in a way that could never be undone. It wasn't a slow process. The difference showed right away. The first nights with fire were unlike anything before. Groups of humans could gather around a flame, feel real warmth, cook their food, and keep the animals that stalked them in the dark at a distance. Over time, they learned to use it to shape materials, to work the land with better tools, to build stronger shelters. Fire didn't just give them warmth, it gave them time. Because when you're not spending every ounce of energy just surviving, you can start thinking about other things. And that was exactly what unsettled Zeus. The king of Olympus saw what was happening. He saw mortals organizing themselves, growing stronger, becoming less vulnerable, more independent. He saw that Prometheus's gift wasn't just a flame, it was a leap forward. And that leap was closing the distance between humans and gods. Not immediately, but in a direction Zeus couldn't ignore. Zeus's anger wasn't the kind that acts without thinking. It was the anger of someone who feels that a fundamental rule has been broken. Prometheus hadn't only stolen something divine, he had deliberately chosen to ignore the will of the most powerful god in the world, and he had done it out of loyalty to mortals. For Zeus, that wasn't just an offense. It was a challenge to the order that had been so hard to build. The punishment Zeus chose for Prometheus was as severe as it is famous. The Titan was chained to a rock in a remote place where the wind came from every direction. There he remained, unable to move, unable to free himself. And every day, an eagle came and caused him a wound that healed overnight, so that by the next dawn, the cycle could begin again. It was a punishment designed to last, not to end, but to repeat. A constant reminder of what happens when someone crosses the lines drawn by the powerful. Prometheus endured that punishment for a very long time. Ancient versions of the myth differ on exactly how long, but they all agree on one thing. He never showed remorse. He remained chained with the same conviction he had carried when he brought the fire down. He knew what he had done and why he had done it, and that didn't change no matter how difficult things became. There's something in that image that's hard to forget. A powerful, immortal, deeply intelligent being, reduced to stillness on a rock. Not because of cruelty, not because of greed, but because he chose to stand on the side of the weak. Greek mythology doesn't frame that image as entirely glorious or entirely tragic. It holds it in an in-between space where heroism and the cost of heroism exist side by side, without canceling each other out. Prometheus remains in myth as a figure who never quite fits anywhere. He's not an Olympian, but he's also not aligned with the Titans who opposed Zeus. He's not mortal, yet he lived for mortals in a way that few gods would have even considered. He exists between worlds, the way people often do when they make decisions that don't fit within the existing rules. The fire he gave away still burns in every story humans tell about him. And maybe that too is part of what the myth is saying. That knowledge, once given, cannot be taken back. That a lit flame can pass from hand to hand without ever running out. That some gifts change the people who receive them in ways even the giver can't fully predict. The question Prometheus leaves open isn't an easy one. It's not simply about whether what he did was right or wrong. It reaches further than that. How far can someone go for the sake of others, knowing beforehand what it will cost them? And if they choose to go there anyway, eyes open and decision firm, what do we call that? The Greeks didn't answer that question directly. They told the story and left it there, alive, like an ember inside a fennel stalk, waiting for someone to breathe on it and see what happens.